Hi, and welcome to Fearless. This is a podcast about strength, resilience, and rising anyway. I'm Kylene Shelley, and today we have a amazing guest. I'm super excited about her. Raylene Lewis is here to talk about her son Kyler's journey. And she's also the founder and runs an amazing website and support group. And she's going to get into all the things that they do. You have to remind me of the exact name. It's AVM Alliance,
Mhm. Yep.
Pediatric Stroke.
It's just AVM Alliance, and we help children who have dealt with stroke, who are dealing with stroke, and also brain vessel disease. And there's a whole bunch of different brain vessel diseases besides AVM, but a brain AVM is one of the most common, and so that was the name we went with.
Yeah, and we got connected after Katie had her injury, and I've been on the page ever since, and it is a really great resource. It's super nice to be able to go on there and search for things and get answers. And so we're going to start with, why don't you tell us a little bit about Kyler before his injury?
Sure. So, Kyler, before his injury, I know your daughter loved golf, like that was her
Mhm.
thing, right? So my son was very much into swing dancing. He liked to take girls around on the dance floor and throw them up in the air and do all that stuff. He was actually a national champion for duet dancing. He just loved it, and I had pictures of him with he made the intro for the show. So you think you can dance the kids version. Like if you put it in slow mo, you go on my page, you'll see him on there. He met with Nigel from So You Think You Can Dance. I have a big picture of Paula Abdul giving him a kiss on his cheek. Right? He was
That's
just
so cool.
living life and super enjoying it. Was very active. Had a lot of activities, and we thought was just a completely happy, healthy, normal, everyday kiddo.
And then 6 years ago is kind of when everything changed for you. So, what can you tell us about the day of? Like, what things led up to his injury? And was there anything that kind of stands out now that you would have been like, oh, this is the direction we were headed?
Yes. So Kyler in the past, a couple times, had complained about headache and seemed confused, which we thought was odd. And I took him to the doctor twice, where he was diagnosed with having a concussion. And I said, but he didn't fall and hit his head. And they're like, no, he did. And of course, Kyler does tricks, right? He's throwing girls around, he's doing back handsprings and everything. And so I'm like, well, maybe he did hit his head and I didn't notice it, right? I didn't think twice. Never thought to ask for an MRI or anything like that. And then April 10th, 2020 came, and he was riding in the car with me. And all of a sudden, he said, Mom, did you put me in the car? And I said, No, I didn't put you in the car. You were in the car. Was I asleep? No. And then he said, My head hurts so, so, so bad. I think I'm going to throw up. And I was like, Well, you were fine like 2 seconds ago. What in the world? So I pulled over and he threw up and he just started going downhill like really fast. And I was lucky. It was during COVID-19. Of course, I didn't, it was April 10th, right? I had no idea what COVID was. I'm like, do we
At the
get
beginning, right?
what in the world? And so we took him to the doctor, and the doctor saw him within 20 minutes. And the doctor said, Your son is suffering from a severe migraine headache. And he gave him a shot, and he told me to take him home and to put him to bed. And that didn't seem right. I mean, my son is now
Mhm.
almost like completely disassociative. Like he doesn't remember things for more than 2 or 3 seconds. Like the doctor left the room and he didn't even remember that the doctor had seen him. Right. And I could just see his eyes glazing over, and he's just complaining about this really, really, really bad headache. And so I said, can you bring the doctor back in? Because I don't think this is a migraine headache. I've had really bad headaches. This is not the symptoms. And the doctor came back and he was really gruff with me. And he said, You know what? If you disagree with my conclusion, then instead of taking your kid home and putting him to bed during COVID, you can drive 2 hours to the nearest Texas Children's Hospital, and they can do additional testing. And you never met me. I was like, You know what?
Okay.
I think I will. And I did it in an hour and a half too. So,
Good for
um,
you. Pedal to the well, that was the good thing about COVID too, not too many people on the road, so it
all
probably
the
helped you
road,
out.
right?
Yep.
So I told my husband, there's something wrong. We went to the hospital. They got him checked in. Again, there was like nobody there. It was like a ghost town. And they said, we need him to pee in a cup. He's on drugs. And I said, I mean, sure, give me the cup. We'll pee in the cup, but he's not on drugs. My kid doesn't do that. And they were like, oh, all parents say that. And I'm like, no, that's fine. Just let us pee in the cup. But there is something really, really wrong with my kid. And after about 30 minutes, they said, all right, we're going to send him in for a CT. And they do a CT. And that's when I knew something was really, really wrong. Because you know how they wait, you wait for the
Mhm.
result. No, we put him in there and I'm like watching what's going on. And within like 5 minutes of him being in that machine, it was like ants on a piece of candy. And this lady, this nurse, she just grabbed my hand and she said, your son has a mass in his brain and he's bleeding from his brain. It's very serious. And we're going to transport him to the main Texas Children's because he needs emergency brain surgery. And that
So
was the
did they
start.
airlift him at that point, or did they take
Well,
him by
they didn't
ambulance?
airlift him, they took him via ambulance. They took him via ambulance, and then he immediately, went in for surgery. And then, they put in the shunt to relieve the pressure, right, from the blood in the brain. And we were very lucky because he bled into a ventricle, where the rupture was and everything was in a ventricle area. So we were super, super lucky, which is why he didn't have like the massive symptoms that a lot of kids have. We ended up
Yeah.
having more because he bled into that ventricle. And then they were like test after test, right, to see what's going on. Let's do the angiogram. Let's figure out what this is. And they came back to me and all the doctors left the room. And I'm trying to figure out what in the world's going on. And another lady comes back into the room. And she looks at me and she says, they're not going to tell you. So I'm going to tell you. Your son has a mass in his brain and it's very big. And she pulls up a picture and it's literally 7.5 centimeters by 5.5 centimeters. So if you think of a large AA grade A chicken's egg, that's how big this mass is. And she said, we can't help you. We can't treat this. And if he bleeds again, you'll need to go somewhere else because there's nothing we can do. And
Were
that's
you
what's
just sick to your stomach at that point? Like, were you just like your head had to be spinning?
oh yeah. I'm at Texas Children's Hospital, the #1 neuropediatric hospital, right? And they just told me that there was nothing they could do for my kid. Yeah. That's what
So,
started.
did you take him home at that point, or did you just go
So,
directly to the next hospital?
right. So he was in the hospital at Texas Children's for a week, getting him stabilized and ready. And we were very, very lucky. Again, he did not lose motor function at the time. Memory was an issue, and neurofatigue and everything from the bleed was an issue. But we didn't have to do inpatient rehab, which is so common with these ruptures. And so after a week, he had help, but he walked out of the hospital. And they were basically like, good luck. And they even followed up with a letter. Wasn't that kind of them to follow up
Oh,
with a letter
so
that
nice
said,
of them.
nice, we can't help you. And they said, you can go here, but we can't help you. And so we started our search at that time. And it was kind of like, all right, leave no stone unturned. And so I ended up interviewing 16 neurosurgeons across the United States and one in Germany trying to find a cure for Kyler. Yep. And I'll tell you what we did, right? We ended up finding that there are centers of excellence in dealing with brain vessel disease, which I didn't know at the start. Like everything you learn is trial by fire. And so we ended up going to, I love the fact that there's large language models, right? And AI now, because if I'd had AI then, right, and knew how to use it, I could have gotten help, I think, a lot better and a lot faster. But we ended up doing research, and I looked at what doctors had published medical data, in my case, on large grade AVMs with success rates, because you only get one brain. You only get one.
Mhm.
So Kyler, we'll speed up the story. Kyler ended up having 3 rounds of gamma knife brain radiation. Like I guess it was like every month. I guess three at a time. And then at the end of that, they ended up doing an embolization. What we did was something called multimodality treatment. So it's not just one treatment; it's different treatments to reach the goal. Um, So after the third radiation treatment, they went in and they did an embolization. And of course, like, this is real life, right? This isn't a movie. It's not a TV show. Anything can go bad and go wrong at any time. You only get one brain. And whenever something happens, what's done is done. There is no do over. There is no oopsies. You get what you get. So you got to be really
Mhm.
with every step that you take when you're talking about the brain, and not rush into anything. So after the 3 rounds and the radiation, Kyler got epilepsy and we knew whenever you are a parent dealing with brain vessel disease, it's almost like you are reading that book from the 1980s, Choose Your Own Adventure. Right. And you're like, oh, okay, I have to pick. And so you're constantly picking the lesser of the two evils. Right. And so it was
Yeah.
like, well, we can choose to treat or we can choose not to treat. But if we treat, he's going to become an epileptic. Well, I'm like, well, I know what happens if you don't treat. So let's treat. We'll become an epileptic. And that's what happened.
Yeah.
And then in some cases, you get brain swelling. Tyler got brain swelling. And then we couldn't get it to stop. And we couldn't get it to stop with steroids. And so then Kyler got a midline shift because it was swelling slowly, but so much. And so we eventually got on for a plan to use a medication, a chemotherapy drug, to help Kyler. Luckily, thank goodness, right to try and all that. And this was to stop the swelling, and it worked. And it was called Avastin. And he ended up having 5 rounds of Avastin. And of course, the biggest thing with gamma knife radiation is I want a solution. I want it done, right?
Yeah.
I want it
Yeah.
done. I get over with this part of my life, and I want my kid to be okay. Because as long as you have that AVM there, you can have a stroke. But that's not smart. That's not the right way to do it all the time, because sometimes you can do damage, right? Trying to remove the lesion, especially one as large as Kyler's, or it can even be a small one that's really near sensitive, important stuff. And if you lose it, like, what's gone is gone. I
Mhm.
don't want it to be, have half their vision gone for the rest of their life, or not be able to walk for the rest of their life, right? So you just kind of have to think, you know what? I'm going to go slow and steady wins the race, and I'm going to play the odds based on the centers of excellence and based on statistically what has the best chance of curing my kid. And so that was the game that we played. So after the Avastin, we had to wait, right? And then 4 years later, 4 years later, we did a angiogram, and the AVM had shrunk from 7.5 centimeters by 5.5 centimeters to 1 by 1. Now, that little sucker had bled several times, just so you know, called microhemorrhaging, which is
Like,
like,
and you noticed that did you notice neurological differences in him? Like, was that a hospital
absolutely.
stay?
He sat back. Oh, yeah. Oh, my head hurts. It's like the same thing. It's almost like I'm playing the same stupid playbook, but I didn't have a choice. So then it's like, was Kyler life flighted? Yeah, he was life flighted with one of the bleeds, right? He was ambulanced probably 2 more times to Houston because of other bleeds. But I can't do anything. All I can do is stay the course and hope that this silly thing works. Now, a good thing, because I know that you're probably like, oh my gosh, Raylene, the things that happened to my kid are not normal. Okay.
Yeah.
And if my kid got through it with all of the things that can go wrong, doing wrong, most kids are going to be, so much better, so much better position. But the good news is, from Kyler's story, is that there are solutions when there are problems, right, down the road, and you know what to look for. And a good thing that I especially want to tell you is that the first 6 months after the initial dose of radiation is like the worst. It's the hardest, because you kind of upset those arteries, and you tick them off, and they become a little bit weaker because you just radiated the crap out of them, right?
Mhm.
But the good news is, after that 6 months, they start to thicken, and they start to grow, and they start to slowly close off, which is what you want, because that's what we're doing, is we're stopping the lesion from continuing to circulate that high flow connection of arteries to low flow connection of veins. And so because they get thicker, they are less likely to bleed. So you are not at the same level of, I'm going to have a bleed, when you start. as like a year or even 2 years or even 3 years down the road. So
Yes.
after 4 years in August of 2024, that AVM was this big, we had a craniotomy. Oh my god, scariest day ever. They cut,
Yeah.
6.5-inch scar, popped open the skull. Talk about stress, uber stress all
Mhm.
over again. Went in, removed the AVM, put the skull back on, put the plates back
Staples
on,
are, yeah.
and guess what? Even though they told me, "Your son has a 99% chance of another bleed, and an over 50% chance that that bleed will be fatal," by some of the top experts in the world. I was told that more than once, more than twice. My kid has no evidence of disease. It can happen.
Yep, it can. I think the weird thing, and like you probably have noticed this more just through everything that you've kind of put together in his story, is that the brain is so different for every single person. And I'm noticing that like even these stories are all so different. Did you have somebody that you could look to as to like that road? Like once you started opening this up and looking at other families, like were there families there that were able to support you the way that you support all of us so much?
No, that is why I created AVM Alliance because, I was constantly asking for support. And I will tell you that, like, I have PTSD as a result, formally diagnosed, and hypervigilance disorder, because it's just so stressful, like what you're going through. And I was like, this is crazy. Nobody should have to walk this path alone. We need to make a way to have this information for families so that people can get to the right doctors and get the right help. And that so, like, if my kid has a problem and I don't know what to do, and do I call the doctor? Do I not call the doctor? Right? I call it momcology. Go see the
Mhm.
momcologist. Right?
Yeah.
So you can go online and say, look, is this normal? Is this not normal? What do I look for? What do I ask? And that just came out of my own personal need for the village to help us get through
Yeah.
it.
Well, the website is amazing. I don't know if it's a full website, but the page is
Yes.
amazing. And there's so many people on there that have so many different stories that I know you've been able to touch. What do you think is one thing that would have been helpful when you were first going through this that you wish, like now looking back, like, oh my God, if I would have just had this thing, it would have made everything else so much easier?
I mean, really like a directional map. So they
Mhm.
have a pediatric stroke toolkit, which is fantastic. I've met so many people along the way, and it was done by another mother whose child had a stroke in your in
In utero.
you. Yes, thank you. It's called a perinatal stroke, right? In utero was
Mhm.
what I kept trying to say. And I looked at that toolkit, and it was super helpful, but also not helpful at all for somebody with brain vessel disease, right? And
Mhm.
so AVM Alliance made a hemorrhagic stroke toolkit and guidebook specifically with the information of, like, what questions to answer, what do you give the school, how do you talk to the school, how do you talk to insurance, how do you fight for more physical therapy, how do you do all these things. Like, we really needed a how-to guide because it really is everything trial by fire. And it's just too hard. You're dealing
Yeah.
with so many things. You're just trying to survive and figure out what you don't know is enough to make any person, have PTSD.
Mhm. And you have other children, so you were in the same boat as we were, like, you're trying to give your all to this one child that desperately needs everything, and yet you're still trying to keep your family moving in a forward direction. How did you guys handle that?
Well, and a full-time job because I'm
Yeah.
self-employed. So if I
Yes.
don't work, then I don't eat. And so that's important as well. So it was juggling a lot of things, and I was very I absolutely relied on family to help me and friends with my kids, with my other two. So, but like, I know my daughter, like, she did dance, right? And so she was on her drill team, and I couldn't leave to go to the away competitions or events because I had to be within so many miles of a hospital in case something bad
Mhm.
happened to my kid, right? I couldn't leave. And so she ended up writing an article, or I guess an essay for college, that just totally broke my heart about being a glass child, because I thought I had done a good job, right, of trying to, but she felt like I was not there a lot of the time because I was, focused on her brother. And
Yeah.
then I have
Well,
my
you did do a
younger.
good job. Don't even second guess that. You did a great job.
Yeah, no, I have 3 kids, and even my youngest kid says, "Well, mom, you just let me be, and I guess that's okay." You
You're like,
know?
you're the child. You're the third. You should be able to
Exactly.
do all this stuff on your own anyway.
That's right, that's right. So you do what you
So
can.
you do. And we were kind of, before we hit record, we were kind of talking about, the reason I started this was because I felt like a lot of attention gets brought to those initial trauma stories. And really, it's great and it's important, but like I feel like it's almost more stressful now than it was during the initial trauma because you are dealing with all of these other things like insurance and therapies and trying to figure out the right pieces that go into all the puzzles and all the treatment that goes along with it. Do you feel that way as well, or did you feel like okay, the initial was the hardest?
So I feel that you really need to think of it like a roller coaster, okay? Like,
Mhm,
pretty much when you get diagnosed with your kid having a rare disease, there's, like, the day before and then every day after. And
mhm,
there is a distinct, human line that that you cross that you can never go back to. And I believe it's like we get on a roller coaster, and, like, with a traditional coaster, everybody can get on and they can scream and yell, and there's ups and there's downs, and nobody really thinks anything of it, right? They get off the ride. Okay.
mhm.
Parents dealing with brain vessel disease, we have to scream silently because people would think we were crazy, and they don't understand what we're going through, and they don't understand the decisions that we're having to make or the challenges. It's like me. Do I give my kid, if I do this treatment, my kid is going to become an epileptic. That's my fault. Right, because I'm the one who did it. But then it was the lesser of the two evils too. And for whatever you do, the consequences are permanent. And so the
Yeah.
screams are silent because we don't know. It's not like reading a book, it's real life. And we don't know what the right answers are. And so that's
Mhm.
continually to be just extremely, extremely stressful. And then, I'll say, oh, good, you're no evidence of disease now. Yay. Does that mean I can get off the ride? No, because you have a whole bunch of different challenges, just in dealing with the disease itself and dealing with the after effects, right? What damage that has been caused. And so your challenges don't go away, they just change.
Yeah, we were kind of talking. So Kyler's in college now, which is awesome and amazing and fantastic, but there's still challenges. Like, do you want to share a little bit about what he's been kind of jumping
Sure.
through lately?
So Kyler's biggest issue is that he has a service dog named Sam, right?
Oh,
He said Sam is a huge like chick magnet, so he's good with his
of
dog
course.
Sam. His Sammy alerts him, if he's got, problems, worried about a seizure, and just keeps him safe. His Sammy keeps him safe. And so when people see Kyler, they know he has a service dog, but visually, he didn't lose any motor function. So you can't tell that something's wrong. And you might talk to him and he might repeat something and be like, well, that's weird. Well, were you not listening to me? But they don't actually understand that he has a hole this big, right, in his
In his
head.
brain. Right.
Surgery. And the hardest part, which I think all families struggle for, I don't think it's just me, is whether you're in high school, elementary school, or college, you have accommodations that these teachers are supposed to follow so that your kid doesn't get special treatment. It's so that they get put at the same level as the other kids, because these kids that have brain vessel disease are dealing with nerve fatigue. They're dealing with reconnecting the pathways that no longer work like the other kids. And for the majority of teachers, what I have found is it's not worth their time. They don't care. They are not going to follow the accommodation unless you jump up and scream and, and even then, right? I actually had to call the office, like senators, and say, my kid, here's what the doctors are saying. The college is completely ignoring his accommodations. I mean, and how embarrassing is that for a 21-year-old, for his mommy to have to call the school and say you're not
I
following the
know.
right?
Is he living on campus? Are you able to let him live on campus?
Yes, so he does not live on campus, but he has his own house. So he doesn't live with me anymore. He has his own housing. He has a roommate, and so we've come a very, very, very long way. And there's things that, like, for example, they never tell you that you need to do to help keep your kids safe. So, for example, Kyler wears an Apple Watch. And that, why did I pick the Apple Watch? Well, for one thing, it has seize alert on it. So if he happens to have a tonic-clonic type seizure, it will notify somebody right away, even though he's by himself and, adult male, self-sufficient now, right? But also if he falls, if he hits the ground, an Apple Watch, you can have it set up to notice that and to notify somebody. And so there's lots of little things that you can do to keep him safe. When he had that huge swelling in his brain from the gamma knife, right? And he was living at home because it would have been super dangerous. He had a panic button so that if he could tell if he had an aura from a seizure, he could press a button and the hospital would be called, right away. If he had a massive, massive headache all of a sudden, right? Because these things happen like that,
Yep.
he could be called right away. And then we had a nighttime camera called a specifically designed for kids that have seizures. I have to remember what it's called, but we had that on him, which he hated. But at least if I'm asleep and he's asleep, and then all of a sudden he starts having a seizure, it would notify somebody.
Yeah.
So
Is he still having seizures today, or has he been seizure free for a while?
he's actually been seizure free. Knock on wood.
Knock on wood.
Knock
Absolutely.
on wood, since his surgery. So
Awesome.
he was originally considered an epileptic who medication did not solve the problem. So he was on 3 anticonvulsants and was still having seizures. And that was part of the brain swelling and part of all the stuff that we went with. It was just a whole nother, like, yucky story. Um,
Yeah.
but when we did before we did the craniotomy, we did something called an EMU study where the question was, could we see where the trigger in his brain was coming from that caused the seizure? And the answer was yes. And when they went in and they operated, the doctor said there was actually tissue that was completely discolored. It wasn't good. It was bad, bad, bad tissue. So, in
Mhm.
addition to removing the brain AVM, in our case, they removed scar tissue that was a completely different color that was causing the seizures. And so, when that was removed and the AVM was removed, then we were no longer having those that the wavelength, the firing of the bad, I guess, electrical pulses, right? The wavelength pulses. And
Yeah.
so he is now down to 1 anticonvulsant, and they will keep him on 1 anticonvulsant. We titrated down over months and months and months, over a year, to get down to 1, and he will stay on that one for another year or 2, and then if we still stay, epileptic free, or seizure free, then we will slowly remove that one as well.
Sometimes I feel like you take a step forward to take, like, 3 to the side and 5 to the back. Like, that's what this sometimes
100%.
feels like.
Yep,
You're like,
100%.
"Oh, look at we just made a step forward," and then you're like, "Oh, nope, just kidding. We're gonna go ahead and head over here and head back here," and so at what point during his recovery were you like, "There needs to be more support here. Like, I need to be a person who makes a change." Like, what was that moment that you were like, "I'm gonna do something about this?"
Honestly, it was just feeling so overwhelmed and lost based on not knowing what to do and crying in the shower. The shower was the one place where I did not have to be strong. I could, really let my emotions, reset
Mhm.
and think about this. And I am not typically just a complainer person. Like, my personality is very action oriented. And so it's like, well, you don't see what's needed. So, and you want it. So, what are you going to do about it? Right. And so that's when I was like, you're right. I can't just sit here. And here's the thing, it's so easy to spiral and go downhill. I mean, your kid has been diagnosed with a life threatening illness, right? You just found out
Mhm.
you qualified for Make a Wish. I mean,
Mhm.
yay, but also no, right? And so
It's like
it's
the
one of
trip you never wanted, but here you
you
are
never wanted.
planning it. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. Now I'll take it because I need
Mhm,
sanity.
mhm.
My kid needs it more than anything else, right? But it's absolutely the trip you never wanted. So I started focusing with him on, okay, we have no control. I have no control if this is going to work. I have no control over what's going to happen if he's going to have another bleed, and not make it. So I can just focus on every day and being so
Uh-huh,
grateful, which really every person should do with their
uh-huh.
family all days, because you never know what's going to happen, brain vessel disease or not, right? So the focus is, what do I have control over? Because again, it's so easy to spiral out of control and depression and everything else. So it was like, okay, where is the treasure in my world of hopelessness right now? And then that's what I need to cling on to. And that's what I need to focus on, is what I do have control over. And what I have control over, just like you, is making sure that my story is told and that other families won't be as lost as I was. And so
Yeah.
that's why we started AVM Alliance.
Now, you also have a non-for-profit that goes along with it, so what does that non-for-profit focus on?
Sure. So we are a true 501(c)(3) nonprofit. www.avmalliance.org is our main website. And we focus on a lot of things. So for example, one of the first things I wanted to know that my kid could make it through this, right? And you never know, but I wanted stories that showed that in theory it could be okay. People have done this before. I'm not the
Yes.
only one ever in my own little world, right? So
Yep.
AVM Alliance has a warrior stories page where families can go and submit and tell their story about their kid. And you could actually link your podcast, or you could link your website, or you could link Callie's page to it. So people could go on it from whenever you submitted it, and then still look today and see how that person is doing. And when you are alone in the hospital, and you are like, what am I even doing here? And how did this even happen? And people are telling me it's rare. And people are telling me, oh, we don't know. We see like one of these every like 5 years or whatever. You can go online and automatically find your people and find a community. And so that's a big
Yep.
thing of what we do. And then we also honor the warriors that don't make it. There's a 25% chance, I guess, of death with each bleed, right? And a 30 to 60% chance of deficit with each bleed. And so we are not only honoring the kids that are warriors that are making it, but we are honoring the kids who didn't fight any less hard. They just ended up with a different outcome, which could be anybody. And so we honor those warriors on our page as well. Now, in addition to that, we have events that are online. So a great example was, we're in April, right? So in February, we do a Valentine card exchange. And so parents can go in and sign up, and then I try to pair them with kids who are about their same age. We have kids, like I said, as young as 2 or 3. This is for the parents too. We do that. I have 27 and 30-year-olds who are recovering from brain vessel disease, who want to participate, and so I make
Yeah.
sure they exchange Valentines with each other. And so the kids send a Valentine, and then they receive about 3 or 4, which is a fun, nice surprise, because we get the
Uh-huh.
community involved. And you would be amazed at what a difference it means to be recognized and be seen and be like, there is somebody out there who doesn't even know me, who says they are thinking about me and cheering me on, in my recovery. So that's just kind of an example of something else that AVM Alliance does. And then we have our care binders, which I talked about a little bit earlier, which hospitals ask for them, right? And so we try to send them. They cost about $50 to make, and so we sell them for our cost to make them. Or you can download the content and make your own for free. It's all there, right? We're not for profit. We're just trying to get the information out to help people. We probably do 2 to 3 referrals a month, getting people and families to centers of excellence when they've been told, I can't help you. Trying to help educate them, especially about like the newest treatment options and things like that. Like, there's medication now in some situations, which they're even taking in conjunction with Gamma Knife, which was never an option for my kid, to try to make extra sure, right, that it works and that the kid is okay and safe. But there's just a lot of things like that. We have a monthly parent support group that meets, we just do things that try to let the kids and siblings, we don't just not the kids alone too, but siblings know that they're not alone, they're not walking this journey alone, and that we are here to support them and their family.
Now, this question's going to kind of take you back just a little bit. So, when all of this first happened, I know you have a huge community. You have been in real estate since 2001. So, I
Yes.
already know what that looks like from my side of it. But when this all happened, I feel like you're very similar to me, and it's very hard to say yes to things. Was that a struggle that you had with your community? Because I'm sure they came out in force for you. And how was that as a family, like, getting to that point where you're like, "Okay, we need help?"
I mean, it was really, really hard to ask for help. We ended up doing a walk. And it really made all the difference. That's how we started selling our shirts, and really I was able to raise the money to have the 501(c)(3). Like that was really where that went, which has now helped so many families. But it takes a lot to ask for help, but you need to be able
Mhm.
to rely on your community to help you. And for me, and I don't know about for you, but like everybody knew Kyler's story. So we had a caring bridge set up for him. I posted on something that was way long before AVM Alliance, which was called A Cure for Kyler, which that Facebook page still exists, A Cure for Kyler, where I would update people and say, exactly what was going on as we were going through the journey. And I mean, sad but true, but for some people it was entertainment, right? It's, oh my gosh,
Mhm.
what happened now? I want to know. It's not,
Mhm.
it's not bad. It's not evil. They're not mean, right? It's just like, "Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine going through this," and it's like a real life soap opera of what happens next. And so,
Yeah,
you need to use that in a way because families are struggling. The difference is it's like after the bleed, everybody leaves, but
yeah,
our problems don't leave. They're still there, right? And in some ways, in some situations, they get worse or they continue. And so we need the websites because when we specifically need help with something, hopefully there's somebody out there who sees that, who sees what we're going through and says, you know what, let me let me step in, let me help. And that makes a huge difference. And then for me, I had people who said, well, I know your son. I know that he's dealing with that he had a stroke. Why should I list my home with you? Why should I use you as my real estate agent? You got baggage. You got tons of family stuff going on, right?
right.
And I looked at them and I said, "You will never find a real estate agent more dedicated to the goal of selling your house or helping you find a new house. Because when I close on that house with you and I deliver 5-star service, I now have the money that I need to get my son the treatment that he needs." And that's the
Mhm.
most important thing to me. And because I don't have time to do all this super fun marketing and advertising and TikToks and things I see online because I'm dealing with therapy and I'm dealing with doctor's appointments and I'm dealing with all this stuff left and right. So my job is to provide you 5-star service so that you will recommend me to your friends and neighbors and they will use me too. So for
Yeah.
that reason alone, you will not find a more dedicated agent to make sure that your house is sold or
Amen,
that you have
sister.
the right house, the right buyer, the right
Exactly.
house.
So, if you were to talk to, like, Sally Joe down the street who's not dealing with any of this stuff, and she has someone in her community that is going through something like this, what would be something that you would tell her that this is how you can help a family like this? Because I think so often people wait to hear what you need, and in that frame of mind, you're not in a position to know what you need at that point. Like, you're just literally living moment to moment. And for example, I know, like, for us, some of the greatest things that happened were people did things for us that they didn't even ask. They just did it. So our grass got mowed, or someone came and did our laundry, things like that that you don't even think about asking for. Like, if you were to tell just a random person on the street, what would be ways that they could help a family that's going through something like this?
The key is see you know what their attention and focus is. It's on their kid, it's on their family. It's literally trying to struggle and survive, and you can see what they're dealing with because, it's obvious to the community. So simply stepping in, don't wait for someone to ask what you need help with, because at that point we're so overloaded mentally with trying to figure out how to keep our kid alive that, like,
Yeah.
I'm not thinking about laundry and I'm not thinking about mowing the yard, and it doesn't even occur to me. But if you
Doesn't
send
matter.
exactly, but you can go online. There's like, I'm trying to think, it's A Spoonful of Comfort was like one that was
Mhm.
like fantastic. I went to the mailbox one day and there was a Spoonful of Comfort box, and I opened it up and it was, "Oh, this is dinner that you can make in like 5 minutes for your family. Don't even have to worry about it. We made that for last night and it came with cookies." Okay? And
Yeah.
it was, I mean, it made me cry because it was
Yeah.
such a relief for something that I didn't have to think about. So if you go, wow, mowing the yard, or, my kid was in the hospital April 10th. It was during Easter. And I didn't say anything. I wasn't even thinking about my other kids. And all of a sudden, my kids called me and they said that somebody had seen that we were in the hospital at Texas Children's with Kyler. And when the kids had woke up that morning, there were Easter baskets and eggs all in the yard because they knew that their sibling was dealing with a lot and mom wasn't thinking about Easter. Dad wasn't thinking
Yeah.
about that. We were in the hospital, right? And so if you think of just little things that you can do, little things are big things to parents
They're
that are
big.
dealing with brain vessel disease. And so even just taking off one little thing off of somebody's plate, even here's a gift card that I'm going to mail you because I don't want to bother you because I know you're dealing with everything. But if you need a pizza night, boom, right here. Here's the card, make the phone call. Here's the DoorDash. Oh, that was like lifesaver,
Yeah.
lifesaver for us. That's what
Well,
I was.
I mean, we had our son was 16 when all of this happened, and I think some of the greatest gifts that we received were gift cards for him that allowed him to just kind of still live a normal teenage life, because it is hard for those other kids going through this life kind of, like you said, there's a before and there's definitely an after, and it's an after for the entire family. It's not just that child that's going through it, and obviously, yes, all the attention is on them, but there's so much more that goes into it as a family that
And
it's important
supporting those.
to have those
Yeah,
things.
I really wish that my daughter and son had had a little bit more support, and I just couldn't give, to say, like, my daughter, there was this, oh my god, I love her. There was this, teacher at the school, and she was, I guess, the school counselor. And my daughter started having panic attacks because when, how sometimes remember back in the day, you'd be sitting in class and then the phone would ring, and when the phone would ring, you don't know why the phone is ringing in the teacher's room. And for my daughter, several times it was, "We're life flighting your brother," right? Or "Ambulance came and got your brother. Your brother had another seizure and he stopped breathing." And we had to make sure that the school knew, because small town and everything, and word gets out, right? And so my daughter started having panic attacks whenever the phone would ring because she would be like, "Is it my brother? Is something happened?" And then my younger son, there were kids that were horrible because there just are, and they would be like, "Your
Mhm.
brother dead yet?" Like, I literally had that problem, "Your brother dead yet?" At the elementary level. And so other people just even throwing extra love, like, we had people who would just mail, cards just that said, "Hey, I'm thinking about you," to my kid that had the brain vessel disease. Sometimes my kids occasionally would get cards for the siblings. It was so nice.
Yeah.
It was that extra, like, hug
Yeah.
that made a difference because the emotional damage is
Yeah.
just so hard that
It's
you're living.
deep.
It's
Yeah.
really, really, really deep, and you can say, "I don't understand, but I'm thinking about you, but I care about you, but I'm here for you, but I wanted you to know, I saw this card and it made me laugh, and I thought, let me send you a laugh too." I mean, it can be
Yep.
simple, it can be nothing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll wrap this up, but I want people to know about the 503, your non for
501.
profit. So
Yes.
sometimes I feel like I've had a brain injury because my brain does not work at its full capacity anymore. I'm sure you feel the same way as well. We
Always.
were talking earlier about like some of the things that they ask our kids to do. We're like, we can't even
I can't do it.
remember half that stuff. Yeah. So, I want to direct people to that. So if you want to give that website again or any additional information that you'd want people to know about.
So yes, so the website is I'll tell you a couple things. So the main website is AVM Alliance .org. And that's where, you can go and find out general information about us, about this disease. Um, about how it works. A kind of fun story is that if you watch it, there's a video from the hospital, and the hospital talks about the different treatments. And it says sometimes the answer is to watch and wait. And that's at 8 minutes in the video on my site. That's my kid's brain. That's
Yeah,
the picture that they used for watch and wait, which you don't want to do if you can help it.
right.
That was my kid's brain, but he didn't have to watch and wait. We were very, very lucky. We were able, to get treatment. But there's the video really explains brain vessel disease very, very well, and it's on the homepage. In
Perfect.
addition to that, we have a public Facebook page, which is called AVM Alliance, a pediatric stroke page. And so we publish on there, not as often as we should, and then we also have a private group called AVM Alliance, a brain AVM aneurysm pediatric stroke group, which is a private group just for families to talk who are dealing, with the disease. And then we have I post on there events and things that you can sign up for. And I would say if you're watching this and you do not have a kid with an issue, if you're like, hey, how can I help? We would love it, even if you did the simple things to get in touch with us, info@avmalliance.org, and help us write letters. Because writing letters, we send gift packages to kids when they're in the hospital, gift packages when kids are super nervous. There's lots of things that you can do, as a community to help families that are dealing with brain vessel disease. And here's the thing. I feel so bad for all these families that are dealing with cancer. Everybody knows cancer. A brain AVM is more than twice as common than brain cancer in children, more than twice as common. And yet most people do not know that exists, and do not know that a child could have a stroke just like an adult can. And so we don't have that support that a lot of the other groups have. And that's why we're sharing our story and spreading the word and talking about it. And we could really use help and letting our kids know that they are not fighting this journey alone.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate it. We were talking earlier, we're still in the early stages of all of this. We're only 8 months in, but you have given me, like you talked about, that path that we can see that good things can happen. And even though every brain is different and every injury is different and every AVM is in a different location, it's so good to see families that have walked that path already, and we can throw questions at you. So the work that you do does not go unnoticed. I just want to let you know, from an early AVM mama, thank you for everything that you've done, because it is truly given me comfort. There's been many nights that I've spent just scrolling through the Facebook page, just looking at everyone's stories and trying to find similarities. I talk a lot about how comparison is the thief of joy, but it's so hard not to, especially when you're going through this. You just want to see someone with a similar location or storylines that you can kind of see which path they took, and it's just great
And
to have that community there.
to see success. You want to look and
Yes.
see this person had an AVM like mine, and this person had this like my kid, and look what they're doing now, because we all need hope. Hope
Yeah.
is real, and it can disappear really fast, and it's super important for that community to work together to keep it alive. And a big part of that is, having your village remember that you're not forgotten, that they went on with their life, but you're still dealing with yours, and being there to help you be like, oh yeah, you know what, let me check on them, or you know what, let me send them a note, or you know what, let me send them a gift card, so that when they are having that really, really, really hard day, there's that lifeline that they can grab onto, because they know that there's other people there that care.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you've done a great job with it. So we'll attach everything to this. Thank you so much for being here. This was so informative. I mean, hopefully people are going to be able to pull a lot out of this. I am so thrilled to see Kyler doing so well. And I saw your post about his 6-year anniversary. So I was like, yep, we got to get her on. We got to talk about this kid because that is awesome.
Oh,
So
well, I
thank you
love
for being open to share it.
now you are a podcast that is that does a lot of stuff on YouTube. So it's not just something that you listen to, but it's something that people see too, right?
Yes.
So I'm just going to show you really quick because some people get so confused. This
Oh my
this is my
gosh.
kid's AVM. This was the mass in his brain that we never knew existed. And as you can see, these are the arteries
Yep.
and the veins, and they are more than 10 times stretched already before we got started with the treatment. And another way to think about that is there. That's literally his skull, his brain,
And
and
look how big all
what
that is. That's crazy.
and if my kid can get through it, right, and be considered no evidence of disease, others can too. Thanks for having me.
Raylene, your story is amazing. And I know it's going to help a lot of families. So thank you so, so much.
I'm so grateful for everything that you do. Thanks for having me.
Anytime. Oh my God, you're so amazing. Thank you. This is so